All right, what is going on, everyone? So today we're going to be bringing you a pretty interesting video. I say I'm going to be presenting to you an interesting video. We're here to talk about, as you can see in the background here, the playtest for Cosmic Crucible has officially ended. So I am here to present to you some of the information that I have, some of my experiences that I partook in, that's the right word, right? In this playtest, how I feel about it in general, and all of that. I want to talk about all that. So I had 3 days of playtesting for Cosmic Crucible, which I got to play against real people. Some people, unfortunately, some content creators actually got matched up against a bot, because apparently, just because not enough people signed up, I suppose, to the playtest, that there were these kind of instances. But when it goes live, this is very unlikely to happen. That being said, I want to talk about all 3 days of my experiences, what I learned from it, how I feel about it going forward, and I hope they do more playtests, but I don't think there is, and I think really that they're just going to take the information from what we gave them, or are giving them, and it's going to go just jump straight into live, and I'm a little bit concerned about that going forward. So all that and more in today's video. So without further ado, let's get the show started. Okay, and so I want to start things off here. So there are a few screenshots that we can use to kind of share with you exactly what's going on. There's only 4, not very many props that I can use, so a lot of this is going to be me talking about my experiences. But you can see here the rules of the Cosmic Crucible, and I kind of want to start here because for those of you who are unfamiliar with how this works, it kind of does an okay job at explaining exactly what you're going to have to do. But before we get started, I kind of want to talk about my day one, so or even actually my pre-day one, my setup. So I spent a good deal of time deliberating over my Cosmic Crucible defense in the 6 rooms that were made available for this. And so it's my understanding that when this goes live, that there's only going to be about 6 rooms that you're going to be setting up in, and which means that there's going to be 6 rooms that you're going to attack. Now, of these rooms, that 2 of them were plain with no rules, and 4 of them had rules. More on that a little bit more soon. So on the surface, they felt impactful enough for me to think about who I wanted to put where. And, I actually spent probably a good 45 minutes just thinking about the 6 teams that I wanted to put up, because, this is not Alliance War, so a lot of the teams that would be previously good in war defense obviously do not get any of the war-related text. So that's important there. Let's talk about, though, how you get scores in this. So victory points are granted once you have defeated a room, run out of attempts, or the trial has ended. Victory points are only used to break ties between 2 opponents who cleared the same number of rooms. The tribunal will provide victory points for VP, or victory points, for the following factors: full clear, knockouts, attempt bonus, healthy characters, and efficiency. So these 2 are super important, and we're going to come back to this a little bit later. Healthy characters, or health, and efficiency. These are some problem areas, actually, of the playtest. The full clear, it actually tells you some of this up here. So a full clear is granted once you've totally cleared out an opponent's room. This grants you 150 victory points. So if you clear out the entire, all 5 characters, you get 150. You also get 25 for, 5 for every character you kill. So that's 175. If you full clear, you get the knockout points and the full clear points. Now, the attempt bonus. Now, I forget the exact number here. It's kind of cut off. I believe for every attempt that you make, you lose 20. So if you one-shot it, I believe you get a certain amount of points, and then if you take 2 or 3 attempts, you lose 20 for every time after that, and that kind of takes it off. Now, typically, if you one-shot a room, I would say you average around 250 points, thereabouts. I think you can get a little bit more than 250, like you can get 260. I think that might be the top end, but normally where I ended up being was around 250. But where a lot of the discrepancy comes from is actually the health points here and the efficiency. I do want to pivot to this here. So this is a little bit of an advantage. Just defender's advantage. A little bit of an example of one of the rooms that were available in this playtest. This was called the slow down room. So this was one of the rooms that did have a rule in it. So you can see the defending characters gain 20% health and 10% damage. This was applied across all 6 of the rooms. They all get that, and this is only for defensive characters. Now, this part here, the second part, this is available for all teams. So both defensive and offense, and is kind of interesting. At first, this was very interesting, and, you know, I thought about sort of exactly like where I wanted to put, who I wanted to put where, and how it interacted with this. So on each character's turn, if that character has speed up, clear it and apply 2 turns of slow and trauma. So what that basically means is you don't want to use any characters that apply speed up, otherwise you get penalized on both sides. So whatever defense team you put up, do not use a character or team that applies speed up. And same for offense, you typically don't want to do this. More on this a little bit later, because it did turn out this wasn't as impactful as I actually hoped that it would be. So yeah, I ended up using, for my teams, I ended up using Astonishing X-Men. I subtracted Kitty Pryde, and I tried to put in Doc Ock. Don't ask why, I don't know, maybe I was thinking I was trying to be clever. My second team was Web Warriors. I also used Young Avengers, Black Order, Heroes for Hire, but then I now realize that after fighting them myself, they kind of suck, minus Shang-Chi, you know, hits really hard, but, you know, obviously they're a heavy war defense team, so without these buffs, it really didn't make a huge difference. And the Brother Doom combo, I kind of did a variation of this to try and be clever as well. So that was it for the pre-setup before the matches actually started. Now, on day 2, the matches actually began, and I can pivot to this photo here a little bit. So this isn't my photo, this is just a stock photo that we were allowed to use, and this basically kind of shows what the Cosmic Crucible photos look like. So everyone's going to start here. This is kind of round 1. This photo is of day 2, but this is actually of day 1 down here. So on day 1, you're going to be on this corner node, and you're going to have 8 people in your bracket. And so for that, you're going to be matched up against somebody of that 8, and then you're going to fight, and then whoever wins goes up here. Winners go up here, losers go down here. And so losers fight each other, winners fight each other, and then whoever wins or loses either goes up or goes down, goes up or goes down, and then that's how you match up. Now, there's a total of, at least in this version, there were 3 matches. So I thought there was actually going to be 4 in the week, but no, I believe it's only 3. Just like Alliance War only has 3 in a given week, but this is back-to-back, so you're getting like 3 days in a row of battles. I don't know if this is how it's going to be, and everything I say here likely is subject to change, so because they're probably going to make some adjustments based on our critiques, based on what we have to say about Cosmic Crucible. So don't think that, you know, Boilon said this is exactly how it's going to be. It may not be, but this is what happened to me when I was in the playtest. This is how I feel, so these are just my thoughts here. And so what ended up happening to me is I ended up losing my first match, and we'll talk more about why exactly that is. And then I lost again. I think I lost again, actually, and then I was brought down here, and unfortunately I didn't get to match up against Tana. Now, I was in the same bracket as Tana, but I didn't end up playing against him because Tana he told me that he was matched up against some bots, unfortunately. So yeah, we never ended up actually playing each other, which is a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, so that's how things happened there. Let's talk about my day 2, or my full day 1. You know, when the matches began and I was matched with someone from the bracket. You know, now when the matches start, I'm given a total of 18 attacks. Now, I can do this at any time that I want to do, as long as I get my attacks in within the 24-hour period before the Crucible ends. But this is a little bit of a misnomer, since you can only attack the same room 3 times. And I'm just going to pivot back to this, because I don't have a whole lot of different photos to really show you. You get 3 attempts to take down that defense team before you can't do any more. So the whole 18 thing isn't entirely true. I mean, you could finish it in 6 attacks, 6 one-shots. Only 18 would be as if you sucked and you failed at all the rooms 3 times, you know. So as far as point scoring goes, you know, you can kind of look at this and how that goes. Now, my general experience with doing my attacks was more about kind of planning ahead and figuring out which teams that I had available on my offense to counter their defensive teams. The disappointing thing was that even though in day 1 I spent some time thinking about, you know, the buffs and debuffs associated with the other rooms, it actually didn't make a significant amount of difference when it came to my overall battle. As long as to some extent I was using a counter and the margins of the power weren't that extreme. Now, I one-shot all but one of my attacks. I was up against an annoying Eternals team with a ghost. It's stupid me, I didn't really think about it, and I used Zemo, he chained a ghost, it stopped, and I ended up quitting out twice before I decided to take my Infinity Watch in and just crush it. And when you quit out of a match, you do save your team, but you take a penalty for multiple attempts, like I said in here, for the attempt bonus. I forgot what this value is, I believe it's minus 20, but, you know, it's probably in here somewhere that I can't see, for each attempt, and that's subtracted from your total score that you get, whether, you know, after you win or lose. So I end up using 8 of my 18 attacks, since I one-shot 5 rooms and took 3 shots on the final one, and that was kind of it for day 1. Now, after dicking around and you know looking about in the interface and whatnot, I would say the actual screen time came to about 20 to 25 minutes of my day doing this test, which is okay. And we'll get to more of this later on, because there's more broader concern about screen time in Marvel Strike Force and adding more content, but not exactly removing anything that we currently have. Now, when I was loading up for, I guess, officially day 2 of my Cosmic Crucible, and also figuring out if I won or lost, I did end up finding out that I lost, like I said, by like a mere 20 or 30 points, which didn't seem all that much. But then I looked where this came from and where the difference was, and it largely came from the difference in efficiency and health points, which is what I talked about early on. To some degree, you know, this was outside my control, and I think we need to have a small conversation about these points, which is why I brought them up. So, efficiency is rewarded depending on how many turns you take to win, or in other words, the fewer turns you take, the better. I will say that as far as I'm aware, that summons do not consume turns, otherwise this would be an absolute nightmare for any summoner, but there are many offensive teams out there that are capable of big things but take longer to do this, and obviously this means that teams like, say, Eternals, who just kind of pew-pew and blow everything up the fastest, will probably score the best when it comes to offensive efficiency. So you're being penalized for, say, using a really good X-Factor or Symbiotes or Astonishing X-Men, who maybe are good overall, but are slow and steady in killing things and take more turns to do so. The health is a bit of a weird one, but I guess it's like a percentage of your hit points by the end of the battle or so. That's what I think, and there may be other content creators who have a different opinion or know more about this than I do. And maybe it wasn't super great here either. I wasn't entirely sure if it was based on that or any damage taken in the fight. I think that I ended the battle once with more hit points, but still lost points after I attempted to heal during my fight before it ended, so this one definitely needs a little bit of work here. Where points are going to be pretty static here, though, is the full clear, the knockouts, and the attempt bonus, depending on how few attacks you did to win. The points seem to be in the 250 range, like I said. I believe I said 250, yeah, the 250 range, plus or minus some, depending on some of the issues, like I said, between health and efficiency, which is where I lost my overall match from, really, and this was kind of frustrating. And from there, I think that day 2 offense and day 3 kind of went very similarly to what I already said previously, and I kind of just went in looking for what counters worked on the teams that were in front of me. But the fact that I could see all of them left very little for mystery. You know, unfortunately, there's no real good photo here to kind of present. I'm just going to leave it on this one. There's not really a good photo that I can use for that. There wasn't really any mystery, you know, that I could plan exactly which team I was going to use for each room to make sure I didn't end up screwing myself. You know, like an Alliance War, for example. You know, you can only see 4 teams, and if I were to use my Infinity Watch now, well, what if I need it later? And so there was none of that. And I feel like there could have been a bit more of that, and that might have maybe changed the way that I approached this when I was doing it. I don't know. But, you know, none of this mystery existed in Cosmic Crucible, and it definitely seems more offense-focused than it does defense, because at the end of the day, what's going to be different between you and your opponent seems to be who clears the fastest, and by fastest, I mean in the fewest turns, to maximize that efficiency score that we talked about earlier, and that feels kind of boring. I feel like I should be rewarded for a heavy punch-up if I'm able to do so, or some other unique way, but this just encourages me to punch down and smash them fast, and that was not fun. Now, this brings me to the topic of screen time. While I didn't, and I'll just flip over to this, while I didn't find that Cosmic Crucible that crazy when it came to screen time, it does add to the growing list of things coming to Marvel Strike Force, both temporary and permanent, that will inevitably add to the daily or weekly screen time required in this game. Marvel Strike Force should not feel like a second job, but for some of us, you know, it may increasingly start to feel that way with additions such as Avengers Tower, Patchly, all the events we already do, Cosmic Crucible, and eventually Scourge events, which admittedly are only a week long, but it's all these things that are going to pile on without any reduction and doing away of any of the older content that we're really bored of doing. And on that note, since we did get the kits for Morgan Le Fay, Pestilence, they're doubling down on Arena text, which means that Cosmic Crucible is not replacing Arena, like some people might have thought, as far as shifting power quartz from Arena to Cosmic Crucible. That doesn't seem to be likely, or it won't be for some time. That being said, I'm not here to make suggestions in this video about screen time, but it is a very valid concern that I have and many other content creators do as well, because it's going to make us spend more time daily without any ways to alleviate this. Now, so what are some of my concluding thoughts on Cosmic Crucible thus far? Well, it kind of feels like a lower screen time version of Alliance War that's not war, but solo and with less mystery. At first, I thought there was going to be more theory crafting involved, but after playing 3 days of it, I really stopped kind of caring that much about the buffs and debuffs associated with the extra rooms, as it didn't really seem to make that much of a difference. It was neat on the surface, and it did make me, and I'll pivot back to this, it did make me think for a little while, but didn't seem to be all that impactful long term. I've also been told that these buffs and debuffs will stick around for many seasons, possibly as long as 4 months before they decide to rotate these out and try something new, which I think is too long. Things will get stale. Crucible enthusiasts will have everything figured out and the best teams to go into which room, and it'll be kind of cookie cutter, just like Alliance War kind of is. So what this means is that more work needs to be done to rotate these faster and also find new ways to make this feel impactful, because I didn't feel it. For the amount of time teased and being told about Cosmic Crucible as Grand Tournament before this, I feel a bit let down and disappointed. It wasn't really up to my expectations as I finished the playtest. I was excited in the beginning, but that very quickly wore off after I realized it was feeling more as a means to an end. And in live server terms, this means that I'll do it to get my rewards and get out, but it felt like a bit of a chore and not that meaningful to want to actually play. As someone who doesn't actually like Alliance War that much, you guys know, I felt that maybe I would actually have more fun playing War, and that is really saying something I never thought would be uttered out of my mouth. I don't have any experience with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. That has something similar, but from my understanding, it's nothing like that. And it's actually better over there from what people have been telling me than it is here from the people who were involved in the playtest, which is shocking, to be honest, and also disappointing. I hope that they can make some improvements to the experience before it does go live, but it's also my understanding that, like I said before, there may not be another playtest before it gets pushed out to us, the public. So I can only give you my experiences, my thoughts, and how I felt going through it, and just really was not at all what I expected. I really don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I want to go, I went in with a very open mind, but I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed. But hey, it's just one perspective, and maybe other content creators will have another. And you should definitely hear them out on the matter as well. So they might have other thoughts than I do. Maybe they'll enjoy it more than I did. But at the end of the day, I think there's some work to do, and it's just not quite up to snuff for me personally. But that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my speech here on Cosmic Crucible. Unfortunately, I could not share more footage with you, just what we had available to us. But yeah, feel free to comment down below, and hopefully, if there's anything that needs clearing up, that I can try and do that for you all. And of course, enjoy your weekend, and until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see y'all later. Boilon signing out.